afternoon, and welcome to the Perfecto Mobile webinar. And today's topic is maximizing mobile automation ROI and effectiveness. This is a joint HP and Perfecto Mobile webinar. We still have some issues with Wilson Ma from HP joining us. Hopefully he will join momentarily, but we are going to start. Just before we start, I would just like to give some housekeeping information. This webinar is you are all on currently listening mode, and we have the question panel for you to use, and we encourage you to use it. We'll provide you all of the answers during and after the webinar, so please leverage the question panel. We are also conducting, as usual, at the end of the webinar, a survey, and I would really like to get your feedback after the webinar. So please use the survey also to communicate with us. Last, the agenda for today is going to be as follows. We are going to start with a quick overview about the mobile market. I will cover it just briefly and talk about the mobile application lifecycle, which is becoming more and more short and demanding, and this is why we are trying to understand more about the return on investment and reducing the costs. More on this is that we have to understand how to leverage the existing tools and investments to maximize it and build a robust and consistent approach to mobile. We are going to address the ROI metrics, and this is the core topic of the first part of the webinar. We have built a model with the real metrics taken from the industry, and we would like to share it with you and walk you through it and show you how you can efficiently leverage automation towards reducing costs and building your efficient automation. And at the end, we're going to hand it over to Brett, who is also online for a live demo about UFT Mobile, which is the jointly developed mobile test automation solution by HP and Perfecto Mobile. So let's start. I think that Wilson is also about to join us. Wilson, are you online as well? I guess he's still not with us. So let's start. So we are experiencing, not only today, we are experiencing for the last 2 or 3 years what we call the mobile revolution. Mobility is everywhere, and it just continues to grow. And I'm not going to discuss in today's webinar how mobile is big and risky and everything. We all know it, and we are experiencing it. However, we see that it continues to grow and penetrate the industries, the verticals. And what we see here on the screen is that not only the mobile is growing and becoming more and more dominant in the market, we also see that new segments in the mobile world are starting to penetrate. We see on the upper left corner of the screen new what we call phablets, new segments and new devices, smartphones, which are closing the gap between smartphones and tablets. And with that new devices penetrating the market, we are also adding more and more fragmentation, complexity, and increasing the amount of devices which the automation team and the enterprises are required to support for their mobile web applications, native applications, hybrid applications, and whatever. And we know that from each device, each operating system, the application behave differently. Landscape, portrait, screen resolutions all take part in the complexity of mobile test automation or mobile testing in general. We also see, with regards to tablets, that just over the past year, the tablet market share grew by almost 70%, from 120 million to 201, and it's just going to grow and grow more towards the next year. So for sure, mobile is a big concern, but also an opportunity, and needs to be taken into consideration. With regards to ROI or maximizing ROI and automation, all of the organizations today realize that in order to support their mobile applications across different devices, they need to have a cross-platform robust automation solution. Not only what you see on the screen, this is just an example of the Merrill Lynch native application. What you see here is an iPhone 5 screen and an Samsung S4. These are two of the leading devices in the market today, and you see how the Merrill Lynch native applications look on the iPhone 5. For example, for the Save User ID control, you see that it's different objects and different control to enable or to disable the saving of the user ID, in opposed to the Samsung S4 at the right side, which is just a simple checkbox. You see that without having like a cross-platform test automation solution, you will not be able to run your test script across two different platforms or even devices. So you can see here more and more differences in text, in objects, in positioning of the objects on the screen. All of these challenges are part of the automation, let's say, headache, and the test automation team need to understand how to deal with it in order to make the scripts run continuously. And we are going to talk a bit more during this session about continuous integration and automation as part of the ROI in general. So what I'm going to show you right now is like a short story, which I'm sure that all of you will connect to. As we mentioned, mobile is everywhere and it's growing in everything, and it's enough to have a bottleneck or an issue in each of the steps throughout this story to have your mobile solution break or disappoint your end user, and we know that the end user today in mobile are less tolerant. So this is just a short example showing a life cycle of simple ordering a pizza from the way home. You can see that there are many ways of you to have issues from mobile perspective. It can be either through calling this pizza house, Domino's Pizza, through finding the store, the real local and most close store to you. Then you have the GPS, location-based dependency. You may use a coupon or something as well. So there are much more engagement points and aspects throughout the application lifecycle end user engagement for it to break. So this is not 100% related to our ROI, but just explain how mobility is becoming a real serious matter for all of the end users. So with regards to the application lifecycle, and the app cycle for mobility starts from designing through building the application, testing it, optimizing it for performance, deploying it to the market, and at the end, and it's one of the most important things, monitoring it in production. What you need to understand here is that if you build and you design your application with a robust solution for automation, not only the return on investment, but all of the support lifecycle for you with the application will be much more robust and easier. I'll just give you an example. When you are optimizing your application for performance before you release it to the market, you are using automation. When you test it for functional regression or continuous integration, you're also using automation. When you monitor your application, you are running basically automation scripts on your mobile platforms to make sure that it performs correctly. So if you have a bottleneck, if you do not have efficient mobile test automation solution in place which runs seamlessly across platforms unattended, then in each of these lifecycle points, you will have an issue. You have a risk of breaking your entire lifecycle management toward deploying it to the market. So the point here in this slide, which I want to emphasize, is having your robust automation solution across platforms is a key throughout the entire application lifecycle. From the tester perspective, and I would focus on the tester because I believe that most of the pressure is on the tester side, on the QA side, because the tester today, from mobility perspective, is required to support in a faster way and in an agile way as many applications as possible and shorten the time to market. It needs to support many new devices, platforms. It needs to develop the test in an efficient way and report back as soon as possible the test results to the field, to the R&D. And developing the tests and running them takes, of course, a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, and everything. So this goes back again to the automation solution. In that slide, what I would like you to understand is that today what we are seeing and we are hearing from our customers, and we meet large enterprises and also SMBs, and all ask themselves the same questions. Am I doing the right thing? Am I balancing between the right things when I'm developing my testing strategy? From the left side, you see that there is always a constant battle between how to select my devices based on the device characteristics, how to combine smartphone, tablets, screen resolution, which operating systems, emulators versus real devices, etc. On the right hand, I have like the other balances, using continuous integration, using automation, cross-platform automation, hybrid testing, which we'll address in the demo by Brett, and cloud-based solution. By using the right side of the slide elements, I believe, from my experience, is that you will get the most out of your automation strategy. With continuous integration, you have the ability to reduce the testing cycle, the QA cycle, find the bugs as soon as possible. Automation is a must here, especially talking about cross-platform automation, as we seen in the previous slide. Cloud-based is the only solution today which allows you to test across different geographies, test across many devices around the world, and you do not need to buy the devices, you do not need to take care of the logistics, and you do not need to care about supporting large scale of operating systems and platforms. With regards to hybrid testing, and I will not focus on it technically in this session, I'll let Brett cover it. I'm only referring to the use of both visual objects and real objects, and I believe from my experience, and I will show you soon a demo, just a slide, that this is at least as of today, with regards to fragmentation of the market, a mandatory requirement for you to use. You do need to leverage both the visual objects and the real objects for iOS and Android to uncover the glitches, the differences between the platform, the differences between two devices as well running the same application. We see two different devices running the same application behave differently. And sometimes the visual or the truncation on one device cannot be found without analyzing it visually, not only using real objects. And of course, real devices, we all understand by now that it's a must. You cannot count on emulators because they don't really emulate anything which is close to reality. A word about continuous integration. When we refer to continuous integration, let's understand the benefits. And continuous integration is one of the elements which I think are an accelerator to automation and accelerator for releasing an application to the market with higher quality. When you're building continuous integration and you have the ability to deploy tests on the freshly built application, either it's an Android or an iOS application, you are able to find the errors as soon as possible and report them to the development team even before the QA team have seen this build. Okay, you run a task overnight or every time by demand. You minimize the risk for seeing the errors. More on this, you are getting fast feedback. Organizations which are not using continuous integration today often found themselves getting the feedback, or either in the good scenario from the QA testers, QA teams, but in the worst case scenario, they find the feedback being received from the Google Play Store or from the Apple App Store, and you see the ratings and everything. And no one wants to get their feedback out loud from the market. Another element in continuous integration is the fact that you can repeatedly and reliably execute your test scripts overnight or by demand on every new putback or check-in of your code or your changes or features into your applications across platforms. And this is a powerful thing today, especially when you need to support as many devices as you like and platforms. And the agility and the requirement to deploy fast just grows and grows. Another important thing is to have your regression test executed by demand, okay? You do not need to schedule QA cycles with your QA team, with resource availability and everything, and you need to save money. Building it with continuous integration, a regression test suite, simply allows you to test faster and reduce the headache from the QA team, and maybe minimize the scope of the QA cycle by the QA team, because some of the tests were already executed by the time it reached the QA team. And last, and also an important thing, maybe not measurable directly by ROI, the collaboration between teams. The disconnect between QA and development teams, not only in mobile, is always a bad thing. Having continuous integration and having the collaboration between the QA and development team not only sharpens the quality of your application, but also improves the communication and the transfer of information between the teams, making the application lifecycle much more robust and with high confidence. Okay, let's now focus on the ROI itself and what we have built. When we're talking about the ROI and the constant battle which organizations need to face, we have the cost on the left side, which you see here. And when you talk about cost, you are trying to reduce the number of defects in your application. You are trying to reduce the trouble associated with defects, because if you find defects late in the game and everything, you know about the calculation that the cost of defects become more and more high as you move on from the beta cycle or even when you release the application to the market. So trying to find the defects as soon as possible, reduce the cost of releasing a new version. At the same time, you are also trying to increase the coverage on devices, test cases, and improve your confidence in the quality of your application being released. We know that when you are using manual testing without any tools, and you are trying, in this example, let's say to run 7 or 8 cycles in parallel, you need to repeatedly run each cycle manually, and you need to rely on the same resources to complete one cycle before they move to the other one and everything. So the debate between manual and automation is not something new. When you are using automation, this is how you reduce the cost, you reduce the time, and of course, hopefully you increase the test coverage, and also in some cases, if you develop your automation in the right way, you are also able to build some performance capabilities and robustness into your testing scripts. What about labor rates? We know that when you are, and we see that in every case we are going in customers' visits and everything, we see that organizations today are trying to ask their R&D departments to do more with less. What does it mean? Okay, you are able to run, let's say, 6 or 7 cycles with what you have today. Please try to put more tests and increase the coverage, but with either their existing resources or with less resources and with less budget. How they are doing it or how they should do it, we would refer to it here as accelerator automation. Some of the accelerator automation here can be either a cross-platform solution, which allows you to run one script or one automation across many platforms. Other options will be to leverage the development team to run unit testing and continuous integration related scripts. By that, you increase the number of coverage, you increase the number of test runs on the same application. By the time it reaches the QA team, you already have some level of confidence in the application quality and stability, because you already have some available test reports with tests which your QA team developed but was either executed by automation script or by the development team. So being able to accelerate the automation test cycles and number of runs definitely can reduce the cost and time to market. Spending just a few moments on this important slide, what you see here, this is like the ROI calculator which I have built, and I would like to share some of the numbers with you. These are taken from real customer of ours. I'm not going to mention its name, but this customer had like 24,000 tests to execute. In that regard, 50%, half of them could be automated, half of them cannot be automated. From time perspective, it took him, I'm giving you just high-level numbers, something like 16 to 18 days to run this complete cycle on 4 different devices. You can see your platform devices. 4 devices, 24,000 tests, 12,000 of them are automated. Took him 16 to 18 days to run. With a poor automation which was not executed cross-platform, it was not efficient, it was not robust, it could not have been left to run on a nightly build, for example, like an unattended execution. And this means a lot, because if you cannot leave your automation to execute overnight and leave it unattended, then you are wasting many hours of many machine hours of your automation, which are not accounted for. So eventually, with our solution, UFT Mobile Automation, and our joint activity, we were able to automate half of this test in a way that they can run on 4 different devices, platform. It can be iOS and Android. Here it was 2 devices for Android and 2 devices for iOS, in a way that it saved him a lot of money. What you see here is that for automation rate, in that calculator you can put like an average of $100 per hour, and for manual it was like $15 per hour. I'm counting the manual cost here in hours, by the way, in minutes and in hours. The unit here, what you see for manual cost, was 76,800 hours just to execute this entire test suite. Eventually, with the automation, you see in the automation execution time, the total number of hours was reduced almost by half, and today the big customer which I'm referring to is able to run most of his automated tests, which are automatable. Not all of the tests can be automated, but for the tests which can be automated, these customers can run today his full cycle in something like 4 to 6 days in a repeatedly way, continuous integration method, and with confidence. So what you see here in this calculator can be applied. By the way, this is a model. It can apply to any customer or any number of devices. And we know that there is no other way. You need to implement your automation wisely and across platform to save cost and money. It's clear to everyone. What you see here is that if you invest in the right tools and build your automation accordingly, you can get your return on investment in that case. And this is just like a huge example of many scripts and many devices towards a lot of time. You can get your ROI in less than 8 months of investment. And eventually, of course, you get the payback and save resources, save time, and can deploy much more faster to the market. So this is just an example of one of the banks which we are working with, and this is the model. At the end of this webinar, whoever wants to get the slides or this calculation and more details, I will be happy to explain it with more details and share with you the slides. Feel free to continue and ask questions as you are asking in the question panel. And now that we are reaching the half of this webinar, I don't want to drag it more, and I will hand it over to Brett for a live demo on UFT Mobile. So I will soon hand it over to Brett. 1 second.
Thanks, Iran. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Brett, we can hear you and we can see your screen. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for that introduction and overview of the ROI for testing here. What I want to do today is give everyone listening in an overview of the solution for UFT Mobile. And what I want everyone to take away from this is the ease and the value of being able to automate using UFT Mobile for your mobile applications on real devices. What you're seeing on your screen here is the HP UFT interface. As those of you that are using UFT or QTP today are knowledgeable of, you can see that this is your standard UI for HP QTP or UFT. The only thing that is added here is this UFT mobile add-in that you see on the right. We've embedded a panel directly into the HP UFT UI that allows you to access devices hosted in the cloud. What you're seeing here is the digital video feed from real devices sitting in our data centers. These two are, in particular, are in our data centers in Boston. But what you are now able to do is have your testers access these devices directly from their desktop via QTP or UFT. As an aside, you can have these devices connected as part of a private cloud, and so that these devices are only accessible to your organization. You have access to these devices 24/7, and you can choose what devices go into your pool. You can see that we support a wide range of devices, the various different Apple devices, iPads, iPhones. We also have support for all of the Android devices as well. You can see different devices such as Google, HTC, Motorola, Samsung. We also support BlackBerry devices as well as Microsoft Windows devices. To open up these devices, you simply double-click on the one that you choose, and what you'll see is these devices opened up here. You can go ahead and interact with these devices manually. And you have full control over these devices. You can do different gestures on these devices. You can access different applications on these devices. And to load your device or load your applications, you can either push the applications from your desktop or a network drive or even a build system by pointing to the APK or the IPA file and loading them via widget or script to these devices. You can also download any apps from the application store if you have them already published and have them loaded onto the devices as well. Once these devices are open here, what you can now do is leverage QTP or UFT to be able to create scripts on these devices. So what you're seeing on the left is just a standard UFT script written in VBScript. And you can see that this looks the same as if you would be writing a script against your web application, for example, or your thick client-based application. What I'm going to do now is to go ahead and execute this script against these devices. This particular demonstration executes a script on the United Airlines consumer-facing application. And what it does is it interacts with the app to look up the flight status of flight number 924. So what you'll see here is this particular script now interacting with the Samsung Galaxy. And the way that we've tied this script to the device is via a unique device ID that you can set as part of a variable for your script. You can interact with the various types of objects on your application or actually in the operating system of the device itself. And the way that we interact with these controls or objects is via a hybrid approach. You can either leverage OCR or optical character recognition to recognize these objects visually, or you can use the native object properties to recognize these objects. We think that this hybrid approach is the right approach for mobile testing because it gives you the most bandwidth and flexibility to not only interact with the applications, but make sure that you are verifying what your consumers or customers are seeing on the application, making sure everything is rendering correctly, making sure things aren't cut off. And so using a combination of OCR and native object recognition is key to a high-quality application. Once the script finishes, you can access the last run results. And what you'll notice is this is your standard HP run results viewer. You can drill down into the individual steps. And if I just look at a text checkpoint here, you can see that the screenshot of the device is saved as part of this report. You can also see that the object that this particular step interacted with and verified is actually highlighted on this screenshot. And so now it's very easy to troubleshoot in case you have any errors or issues on your application or that you found in your test. And if you're used to working with QTP, this is the exact same type of view that you would see on a web application, for example. In addition to the screenshots and the step details, you'll also be able to look in to a device video capture that is actually recording exactly what is going on in the device over the course of that test. So now, rather than having your developers and QA engineers send email back and forth to each other trying to describe what a defect is or what a bug was found in the application, your developers can simply access this video and play it back to see exactly what happened on the device over the course of that test. And if you're using Quality Center today to manage your tests, your requirements, your overall ALM process, because this is a standard QTP plugin or add-in, you can leverage that integration to kick off tests remotely via QTP, schedule tests via Quality Center on your mobile apps, and this leverages all of the skill set you already may have in your organization around UFT. Now what I want to do next is to demonstrate how you can execute the exact same script on a different type of device, in this case the iPhone. What this UFT mobile add-in leverages is the Perfecto Mobile Script Once technology that allows you to write a single script and execute it on multiple types of devices regardless of operating system and also regardless of the type of application that you're working with. So what I'm going to do is to copy the device ID from my iPhone. And the way that I've set up this QTP script is with two input parameters, the device ID and the type of application that I want to test. I'm going to paste in my device ID, and of course this can be set on the fly, as you are executing your test, or in Quality Center as an input parameter. And you can change. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Eran. Just want to clarify because we are seeing a lot of questions. We are dealing here with real smartphones and tablets, real devices which are not jailbroken or instrumented off-the-shelf devices. So it's important to understand.
Thanks, Eran.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And so what I can do now is to execute this particular script against the web version of the United Consumer application. And so without changing anything in the script, and other than the input parameters, you can now see that this exact same script can execute against the iPhone. Overall, from a test management perspective, this will save you a lot of redundant test cases for the different types of platforms that you would be supporting in a mobile type of environment. And you can leverage now the same set of scripts, the same set of objects in your object repository, as well as the same set of functions or reusable actions in QTP to be able to create a robust and efficient test library for your mobile applications. You can see that the various text checkpoints work exactly the same, both on Android as well as iPhone. And ultimately, once this script finishes, you can go ahead and view the same test results in the Run Results viewer. And now what you'll see is the execution of the mobile web version of the United application on the iPhone. And because the label of the object that we're interacting with is the same, regardless of how it looks, where it is on the screen, what type of object it is even, both on the mobile web version of the application or the native version of the application, you can utilize that same test step to execute this particular business transaction. So just as a clarification as well, and adding on to what Aran just added to the conversation, because these are real devices, they all have real phone numbers. They all have real data plans that you can set up with. This particular Samsung Galaxy is actually set up with Verizon with a real phone number. You can also test things like call interrupts or text messages and SMS messages. And this can be very useful and something that emulators would not be able to test, and where we frequently see issues. There are a number of different applications that I've come across where when you're using it, there's no issues, but when a call comes in, the application after crashes, or when you try to re-go back into that application after the call finishes, you have an issue with the application. And this is something that you need to build into part of your testing or regression libraries, and that's something that you can now even automate using a UFT mobile solution. So ultimately, I just want to very quickly go into how we can recognize these objects. One way, as I talked about before, is using OCR. So let's say I want to go ahead and launch the United Airlines mobile application. What I can do is create a text object here that allows me to specify the string of the label that I'm looking for on the device. In this case, I'm looking for United. You can see that once I put in that text, this will be located on the screen regardless of what location that particular object is on the screen. I can go ahead and change this to the Apple iPhone. And if I look for United again here on the iPhone, you'll see that this also recognizes the United application based on that label, regardless of where it is located on the device. OCR is very powerful in this case because if you need to change the settings of, maybe you're doing a network test and you want to change from Wi-Fi to carrier, this is something that you can now script and automate using this technology. You can also change things like, storing files or opening up images and pictures, testing the passbook, for example. Applications that kind of complement what you may be developing and you don't have access to the source code and you can't instrument it. You can still create scripts that take those additional applications into account. So once I click execute on OK, and maybe let's say I want to capture this particular script, I can record it, hit OK, and you'll see that this particular step is added to my script as a QTP VB script command. So let's see, how am I doing on time? Okay, there's still plenty of time left. So now what I can talk a little bit about is the object repository. In the object repository, what you'll see are the various objects of your application and of the device that you've interacted with in this particular script. You can see that this leverages the standard type of object hierarchy in the object repository, where you have the overall device under test, and you have the individual objects that you work with. The description properties are specified by you. You can either change them here in the object repository, or it's actually specified when you record your particular step. And you can see that it only uses the label and the button type in this case to recognize this particular object. So regardless of where that object is on the screen, whether it moves around, you can actually minimize the number of changes you need to make to your scripts when your application changes or when you have a new version of your application. Similarly, you can create a central object or shared object repository for all of your scripts, and you would only need to make changes in one location for all of your scripts to recognize those changes. In addition to interacting with your scripts to interact with your applications, there's also a number of different out-of-the-box functions and commands that you can do And I know there were a number of questions around how to load your applications onto the devices. You can actually script that via install application command. And you simply need to point it to your IPA or APK file located in your directory or somewhere in your network drive, and be able to install those applications via script to your devices. And so that can ultimately go unattended. You can also build this as an integration into either Jenkins or Hudson or some other continuous integration tool as part of your build process, and have that all automated as you are releasing or testing, starting to test each particular revision of your application. You have the ability to go into and interact with the browser, interact with the devices. And one of the things of note here is the ability to inject audio on the devices. Audio is becoming a big part of the mobile experience, being able to, for example, do voice commands and have the application react a certain way. You can actually test that now as part of a script by injecting an audio file into your device at the moment where it is listening for an audio command. You can also reboot the device as part of your script. You can go and interact with the different files by deleting, putting files onto the devices. And one thing of note, I also got a question around this, is how to test different network conditions on the devices. You can go into the settings of the device and change, for example, device settings from Wi-Fi to the carrier. Or you can also, as part of our performance solution, emulate different types of network conditions. So, for example, I can specify the exact latency, packet loss, and bandwidth that this particular device is connected to. And that can be changed on the fly via my script to see if my application breaks when I change and walk from an LTE type of network to a 3G type of network or vice versa. So ultimately, as a takeaway from this demonstration, and that kind of brings me to the end of what I wanted to talk about here, you can leverage UFT Mobile to go ahead and create scripts using experiences and skills that you already have today in UFT and extending that to the mobile arena. A single mobile script will be able to execute against multiple types of operating systems and different devices, and you can interact with the device in a number of ways. Different applications that you can test on, different ways to do calls and voice commands of the application. And so what this ultimately provides for you is a large test coverage of your mobile applications to be able to verify all of the functionality associated with your mobile experience for your customers. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Aran, and you can go ahead and wrap up.
Thank you, Brett. Just before we wrap up, we have a few more moments. So I would like to talk about some of the questions which you were raising during the session. So first of all, I would like to thank you for your cooperation and asking all the great questions. I would like to address a few questions which kept coming in. One of them was about what is actually UFT Mobile, or how it works with our real devices. So first of all, as Brett mentioned, we are talking on real devices only, smartphones, tablets, phablets, and also emulators, by the way, but what we have seen here is only real devices. These are off-the-shelf devices, untouched, non-jailbroken devices, which resides in different data centers around the world. It can be in the US, in UK, Europe, and in other locations. And we simply have the ability to connect through these devices over USB. They are connected via USB in the data centers. And what you have seen here is the UFT Mobile, which is the joint product developed by HP and Perfecto Mobile. So for those of you who are using UFT or QTP, formerly known as QTP, you simply install an add-on, plugin to the HP solution, desktop solution, software solution, and from that solution you are interacting with our different devices worldwide. So this is basically how it works. With regards to different questions about objects, I'm sure that you have seen during the demo Brett has just given that we support native objects, visual objects, and DOM objects. We are able to support, using the hybrid approach, the use within the same script of both native objects, if you are talking about web or hybrid applications, so you can leverage and use the DOM objects, the native objects for web application, but also visual objects. If it's just a native application, whatever it will be, you simply use the objects file to track and record the native objects, and you use the other visual objects panel if it's a text-based visual objects, or if it's another object, to build in your script across different devices. So this is something which I wanted to clarify. Another point which is important to also emphasize is the importance of testing in the cloud. So we have talked about testing in the cloud from ROI perspective, saving you the cost of buying the devices, maintaining, managing the devices, and securing them. We also have this BYOD trend and the security aspect in managing all of the devices. But the other aspect which Brett emphasized is about the network conditions. You do want to test your devices, you do want to test your applications on different devices connected to real networks, but also different networks. So you want to understand what your end user is experiencing when running and testing your application on a 3G network, on Wi-Fi, on 4G LTE, if it's Verizon, if it's AT&T, if it's Vodafone UK, other operators around the world, because we have seen that different applications behave differently in different networks or different network conditions. And we have the ability to support and provide these capabilities as well. So these are some of the questions. Yeah.
Ron, I just also wanted to add, I saw a number of questions around how many, parallel testing, how many scripts can you execute, how many devices can be running at the same time. And really, because it's a cloud solution, there is no limit on the number of devices that can be run in parallel with each other, because most of the execution is happening on the server side. Now, if you're leveraging UFT to execute your automation scripts, UFT is a one-to-one type of connection, and so you would need to have UFT machines as well set aside for however many parallel tests that you want to run. But from a cloud perspective, there really is no limit. And I do want to note that we do also have a web interface for doing interactive interactions with the devices from a manual testing perspective. And we also actually have a native automation capability that is standalone in the web. So I just want to note that, because I did see a few questions around that in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett. Yeah, I think that this is a good point, and I think that with regards to the interactive part, especially when we are seeing today that applications becoming more and more complex, we have eye gestures, we have usage of NFC, payment cards, and other hardware, which is requiring you to test it without real automation, because it's either expensive to develop the automation for it, or you do want to have the end user engagement manually. So with having the UFT mobile as a solution which you are taking, you also get the interactive or the manual operations available for you to test these devices also manually, and complement your entire test plan or test suite, if you will, on as many devices as you like. So with that regard, I believe that for today we conclude this session. We will continue to address and answer your questions in the panel, so please feel free to ask any question which were left open for some reason. If you need the presentation deck, please let me know. Send me an email, or to Brett or to Wilson. You see the emails on the screen now. I hope that you see my screen now. And the recording, the web recording, which you have seen right now, will also be publicly available around 1 week from today, either on our website or via social. We will send you the links so you can recap and let us know if you have more questions. So I hope to see you again in our next webinars. Thank you, Wilson. Thank you, Brett, for your great demo and participation. And thank you all for attending, and looking forward to seeing you in the upcoming webinars. Bye-bye for today.